So some of you might have heard a beautiful song that was put together by Will Smith's daughter and Genevieve Harrison. Most of you've heard that new album. It's a few months back, a new album. And there's a song called Gajendra. And it's a song that's basically taking the role of prayers from the elephant Gajendra. So Gajendra was an elephant who in his previous life was a great saintly king. And in his next life, he was born as an elephant on the higher planets, and he was enjoying very nicely the delights of the higher planets, which are full of opulent life. And he was there with his entourage. He had many lady elephants surrounding him. He was the great king. And he entered into a lake or a river, and a big crocodile started to chomp on his leg. And unfortunately, because he was within the water, he was at a disadvantage. So he was fighting, and he was fighting for many days, many months. It's heavenly planet, so he was fighting for many years even. And out of desperate helplessness, he started to recite these prayers. But it was described that the prayers that he was reciting, they actually became inspired from something that he had learned from his previous life. There were mantras, there were verses, shlokas that had been hidden within his subconscious, something that he had remembered from his previous life. And so he picked up a flower and he held it up and he started to offer these prayers. And then immediately the Lord Vishnu came riding on the back of Garuda. I just remember that episode when Kastuba was saying like how we drive around with our fancy cars and we got our music playing. So in the Vedas, it's described that Lord Vishnu is riding on the back of Garuda, and the Vedas are the sound of the Vedas are coming out of the wings of Garuda. So we're all just imitating the Garuda's ride, Lord Vishnu's ride on Garuda. But so Garuda came and Lord Vishnu came riding on the back of Garuda and saved the Gajendra. And so the thing that I thought was interesting was these mantras, these shlokas that were hidden within his subconscious, deep within his heart, within his mind. And so it's something that is beyond just like a material memorization, because anything you remember, anything you learn in this life, in your next life, it's all gone. It's all, next life is goo goo gaga. You know, in this life you may be speaking in front of a great assembly, but next life everything is all learned over again. So, but with the story of Gajendra, see that he was able to recall these wonderful mantras. So that's one of the benefits of doing this memorization, that it gives us an access to spiritual knowledge and intelligence, and even spiritual emotions, and even the Lord himself, even Krishna, appears through the petition of these mantras. So any comments or questions? Anything anybody want to share?
Prabhu, yes, me.
Yes, go for it.
So yesterday I was practicing my shlokas, right, from chapter 15, and I just went over it quickly, from 10 to 20. And there is a specific one that goes, Sarvasucha Vidisani Vishto Mata Smritirgyanam Apohanamcha Vedascha Sarvai Aham Eva Vedyo Vedanta Krit Veda Vid Eva Chaham. And so I, for some reason, the tune, or obviously the memorization, just kind of stuck in my mind, and it was just repeating over and over again. I just found that like so meaningful, because it's such a special, not only like the shloka itself, it's like the verse itself is very special, probably one of the most popular ones, but it's just the fact that it just kept repeating in my mind over and over again. It was nice.
Nice. So, There was some verse. One time I don't know if I was in bed, but it's like, what is this verse? What is this verse? It was going in my head, and I had to learn it. And I think I briefly tried to memorize it like many, many years ago. And it was a mantra that you use to wake up the deities of the Lord. So Savadaba Kurano Bhagavan Vividha Premasmitena Nayanam Buruham Vijimbham Utaya Vishavajayaya Chano Vishadvam Madhva Girat Paniyatat Purusha Puranaha. And so I decided, okay, this some reason this is getting stuck in my head. So I decided to learn it. And it was really nice because this verse is just asking the Lord to kind of kindly appear, like show me your direction, and it's something I actually needed very much in that when that verse came about. So I think we got a few more people who jumped in. Okay, wait, let me. So I wanted to first give like a little summary of the chapter, and then we'll discuss what are some of the techniques that we do to memorize. And so as we did in the last time, I'm going to try to recite the chapter in 3 minutes. Let's see, Evan Lewis, we got some of our old students also coming in. Welcome, welcome. So I'm going to try to recite chapter 7. Chapter 15 I have chapter 15. It's a little bit more solid for me. Chapter 7, chapter 15 I chant every single day. Chapter 7, I wasn't regularly chanting it every day. I was chanting it every day some years ago. So I'll give it a shot. All right, you guys ready? Yeah. Okay. And then we'll go over summary of the whole chapter. So Atha Saptamodhyaya. So there's these additional mantras that can be chanted at the beginning and the end of the chapter. So Sapta, anybody know what the word Sapta means?
7.
7, yes. Evan, did you take some Sanskrit courses?
Yeah.
No, you already knew that.
A little bit, yes, sorry.
Nice. And Rashmi, she got it too, yeah. Atha Saptamodhyaya. So now we'll begin the 7th chapter. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Sakta Manaparta Yogam Yunjan Madashaya Shamshayam Shamagramam Yatagyashisi Tachinu Gyanateham Sabi Gyanam Idam Baksha Misheshata Yajgatvan Habyo Najgatamam Avashishyate Manushanam Sahastreshu Kashchid Yatati Siddhaye Yatatam Api Siddhanam Kashchin Mameti Tatpataha Bhumir Aponalo Vayu Kammanabhudare Vachahankara Ityame Bina Prakritir Ashtada Aparayam Mitastanyam Prakritim Vedi Me Param Jivabhuta Mahabaho Yayadam Dharyate Jagat Etad Yonini Bhutani Sarvaniti Vadarya Aham Krishnasya Jagata Prabhava Playalastata Mata Purtaram Nanyat Kinshit Asti Dananjaya Mai Sarvam Vidam Proktam Sutamana Ganaeva Rasoham Apsukunteya Prabhashmisha Shashurya Pranava Sarva Vedeshu Shabdake Parushamnashu Punyagana Pratibam Cha Tejas Chasmi Vibhavasho Jivanam Sarva Bhuteshu Tapaschasmi Tapashishu Bijamam Sarva Bhutanam Vidiparta Sanatanam Buddhimritamasmi Tejas Manamaham Balam Balavatam Chaham Kamaraga Vivarjitam Dharma Varuda Bhuteshu Kamosmi Bharatharshava Ye Chaiva Satvika Bhava Rajashashtamashashtaye Mata Etete Tatan Vidhi Maite Shute Mai Chibir Gunamir Bhavir Evi Sarvamadam Jagat Mohitam Nabijanati Lokamam Ajam Avayam Daiviyeshu Gunamayi Mamamaya Durataya Mama Evaye Prapadyante Mayatam Tarantite. So that's halfway through. I'm gonna stop there and I give a summary of what I've spoken. And when I say I'm rusty, sometimes what happens is you take a line from another Sanskrit verse and you put them together, like, oh, no, because they sound very similar. So I don't know, how many of you had a chance to see the Bhagavad Gītā in acronyms? Because that's a really helpful tool. Bhagavad Gītā in acronyms. So who remembers what is the acronym for this chapter?
Head.
Head, yes, head. So Krishna, it's as if Krishna is the most intelligent being, because he does what we're told to do in speech class. He gives kind of like an introduction when he gives a speech. Yeah. Somehow he's the most intelligent being. He does that in chapter 9. He does it in chapter 15. And so he does that in chapter 7. He gives a type of glorification, introduction, gets our appetites whetted for what he is about to speak on. And so the first verse, he talks about how if we develop attachment, we hear from him, we listen with attachment. And this is a very key verse, because this whole section of the Bhagavad Gītā is like a veggie burger. Do you know that? So there are 2 buns, and the top bun, or I guess you could say the bottom, the first 6 chapters deal with what is called karma yoga, or they also deal a little bit with jnana. They deal with explaining the position of the soul and how to act within this world. And then on top, you have jnana yoga, where it deals with a lot of the technicalities of how we are entangled in material nature. Like you have a chapter, modes of material nature. You have divine and the demoniac. You have these, how we're entangled. But the middle 6 chapters focus on bhakti. And it might be not so apparent for those who read Prabhupada's books, because he makes it clear from the very beginning that the Bhagavad Gītā is about bhakti. And some of that stuff is slowly kind of revealed as you progress through the Bhagavad Gītā. And one of the reasons is, like you have air traffic controllers. And there was a massive tragedy that happened when 2 747s crashed at an airport, and I think it was in the Caribbean. There was a storm going on, but one of the main cause was the air traffic controller. It was the biggest kind of airplane based tragedy. It was people died in the hundreds, and the air traffic controller said, "Are you ready?" And the person said, "Okay." And then the other plane, because of the kind of unclear presentation of what was going on, this plane started to take off and this plane started to land, and they crashed into each other. And so nowadays, whenever there's any kind of air traffic control, they don't allow any type of obscure speech. Everything is repeated, what is ad infinitum, that it's made very clear what they're talking about. So there's no chance of mistake. So similarly, Prabhupada, when he is translating Bhagavad Gītā from the very beginning, he makes it clear he gives like the spoilers of the movie. He makes it clear, okay, this whole thing is about loving God. And so there's no mistakes when someone picks up the book and it's about getting yogic powers. Oh, this book is about just doing, you do your duty and that's it. So he makes it very, very clear. But if you follow the actual conversation, these things start to become more and more manifested and more identified as you progress through the Gita. And so chapter 7 is where he really talks about this attachment, developing attachment. And so that's the first verse. There's a lot there in the first verse. There's an email that I'm going to send that will probably give you a heart attack, because one of the commentaries on this first verse is several pages long, but usually the readings that we get will be very short, so don't worry. So Maya Saktamana Parta Yogam Yunjanmadashaya Shamshayam Samagramam Yata Gashishitachuna. So this attachment is really what helps to reveal the Lord into our life. It's like it's the instrument by which we can experience God. Just like if you have salt, or if you have some food, the instrument by which you taste it is your tongue. Now there's a nose is involved a little bit, but there's like, that's the instrument to really enjoy the food. And so bhakti is the instrument by which one tangibly experiences God. And so then he talks about Gyanateham sabi gyanam idam bhakshami shishita yachkatpanya vedajkatamam avishte. And then he talks about knowledge and vegan. This is Prabhupada translates, he says both knowledge, nominal and numinal, and I don't have the translation in front of me. Can it? Numinous and phenomenal. So both the material and spiritual aspects of everything is going to be revealed. If you understand Krishna, everything becomes revealed. And then he talks about the rarity of it. Manushanam. What does Manu mean? Evan.
Is it man?
Man, yes. Humans, yeah. Manushanam sahastreshu. Yes, kashchid yatati siddhaye. Kylie, any guess what siddha means?
Ability.
Close, yes. So perfection. Yeah, it's like the yogic powers are called siddhis, so like the abilities, yeah. So he says out of sahastreshu, out of thousands of humans, hardly one is seeking perfection. And yet out of that group, hardly one is seeking, hardly one knows me in truth, in tattva. So that first 3 verses are all about hearing. It starts with hearing. And it's also, this acronym HEAD is there because Krishna is going to reveal different intelligent reasons to not only attract our heart, but attract our head, why we should come to him. And so he begins to explain how he is E, which can stand for energies or everywhere. And so verse 4 is Bhumir apo nalo vayu kammana bhude vacha ahankara ityame bina prakriti ashtada. So this is earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. These are the basic 8 elements. And then there are other elements as well that can be analyzed. And these elements, one may say, okay, that sounds a little bit rudimentary to say everything is dirt and water, but it can be taken in a very scientific manner. For example, if you look at the atom, within the proton and neutron, you have mass. So that's called bhumir, that's called earth. You have there's some kind of cohesive aspect between the proton and the neutron. That's called apa, water, meaning that there's this cohesion there. For example, you take all the water out of the body, then it becomes a pile of dust, pile of ashes. Bhumir apo nala. Nala is the energy or the process of energy transformation. So even within the atom, you have the electron, which is energetic, and you have the process of movement, which is air, and then you have the space that it's contained in. So there's you got your 5 gross elements. Oh, someone is trying to get in the meeting. Better let them in. Oh, welcome, Dana K. Oh, Dana K in the waiting room. Sorry there. So we're talking about the 8 material elements. This is chapter 7, text 4. Nice scientific chapter describing analyzing the different aspects of material nature. So you have the earth, water, fire, air, mind, intelligence, and false ego. So you have the 5 gross and the 3 subtle. And so the 5 gross are, things that you can hear, touch, taste, feel, smell. But the subtle elements are, they can be experienced, but they're experienced on a subtle level. They're experienced through the mind. So you have manas, your mind, intelligence, and false ego. So when you wake up in the morning, and there's a voice that says snooze, is that the mind or the intelligence? Ashley? Or Matthew Seva? Or whoever is free. Some people may be not free, actually.
I think it's the mind.
The mind. So it's the seat of emotion. What feels good? What's going to make me, what I like right now? And the intelligence is that voice that says, you're going to miss the show, or you got to be at work in 10 minutes, or, so the intelligence is a different, it's the same voice in your head, but it has a different characteristic, that it's not about the gratification of the senses. So you have these voices that are battling in your head every morning. One is the mind and one is the intelligence. And then behind that is the false ego, this whole energy that causes us to identify with the body. Next verse is verse 5. Aparayamitastvanyam prakritim vidhime puram jiva bhuta mahabaho yayam dharete jagat. So he describes the 8 gross element, the eight material energies, the separated material energies. And then he says there's another energy, and that's the soul. And that energy is trying to lord over the 8 energies, the material energy. Aparayam tastvanyam prakritim vidhime puram jiva bhuta mahabaho yadam etad yonini bhutani. Yoni. We have our yoni, we have our source, our birth in both these energies. We have a material body and we are the soul. Etad yonini bhutani sarvaniti avadaya. Am Krishna jagata prabhavata. Mata parataram nanyat kinchid asti nananjaimas. Mata paratam nanyat. So he's saying that everything is resting within him. If you have like a beautiful pearl necklace, if it's not like a Mardi Gras necklace, like a nice expensive necklace, you may not see the string, but you have an understanding that it's there. So Krishna says that sutra managanaiva, I am that string that is holding it all together. So he's just describing these energies, and then he's saying, I am the support of these energies. And then he begins to explain how we can experience him everywhere, how we can see him everywhere. See, Sammy is drinking her water. Is that water? Yes. So Krishna says, Rasoham apsukanteya, I am the pure taste of water. You could have something as valuable as gold, but you can't enjoy drinking gold. It's only the pure taste of water that gives that sense of refreshness. And so that rasa, that juice, that experience, that's coming from the water. Rasaham apsukante prabhashmi, I am the light of the sun and the moon, shashi shuriyo. Oh, this is sashi. Chapu, do you remember what shashi means?
Shashi?
Yes.
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. We in America we say man on the moon for the how the spots look on the moon.
The Shashanka word.
Shashanka Napavakaha, yes.
Napavakaha.
So in India, you can Google it. Just type rabbit on the moon, and you'll see how the shadows can appear like a shape of a rabbit. And so in India and Japan and other Asian places, they say rabbit on the moon. And so sometimes the word for moon is just rabbit. So this verse is what was the first line? The first line was Rasoham apsukanteya prabhashmi shashishuriyo. I'm the light of the sun and the moon and the sun. Pranava sarvavedishu. I am the pranava, the om, and shabdake. I am the sound in ether. Punya gandham. So this is like how we begin to when we see the sun and the moon. Oh, there's Krishna's light. When we hear sound, oh, there's Krishna's sound within ether. When we taste, we drink something refreshing. Oh, Krishna is the juice. He is that pleasurable refreshness. Punya gandham prativam cha. I'm the original fragrance within the earth. So earth is, you just get some dirt and you can make lovely fragrances with dirt. How do you make lovely fragrances with dirt? Does anybody know? Kelly Becker? You plant a flower seed.
Ah.
And it's just dirt. It's just the fragrance came. And if you look at the gross elements, there's the 5 gross elements. Each of them have a sensory perception that is provided that only comes from that element. So from sky comes sound. From air comes touch. From light or from fire comes sight. You know, if there's no light, you can't have sight.
Mm.
From what's the next one? Water, you have taste. So here we're going back to even the rasa, it's going to that taste. And from earth, you have fragrance. And so they kind of, each element has, you know, with fire, then you have sight, you have the sense of touch, and you have the sense of sound. Each one has more than the other. Just like the rasas of Krishna, Prabhupada was lecturing on the first verse of chapter 7, and he was saying how he was describing these different elements. He was saying in the same way, there's different levels of understanding God, and there's different levels even of relationships. So like the relationship of friendship's got more in it than the relationship of just servitude. Okay, so where we're at, we're on Punyaganda Prativam Chat, Tejas Chasmi Vibhavasho. I'm the power within the powerful. Tejas Chasmi Vibhavasho. Oh no, I'm the power within fire. Jivanam Sarvabhutishu. I'm the life within all living things. Jivanam Sarvabhutishu. Tapas Chasmi Tapashvishu. And I am the austerity of the ascetics, of the yogis. Bijamam Sarvabhutanam. I am the original seed of all existence. Vidiparta Sanatanam, the original eternal seed of all existence. Buddhimatamasmi Tejastid. I probably should grab a Bhagavad Gītā just to make sure I'm saying the right one.
What are you doing, Birch?
What's that?
Sorry, I was talking to my cat.
Oh, okay. Bijamam Buddhimatamasmi. I'm the intelligence of the intelligent, and I am the prowess of the powerful. Balam Balavatam Chaham. So this is basically Krishna is giving us these ways of just to see his energetic opulences, his vibhutis within everything. So it's not, okay, God is in the temple. That's it. No, Krishna is everywhere in not just in the energies, but just in the way that a mother may see her child's shoes and affectionately remember her child. So we see these different energetic aspects, and we can remember the person Krishna, the Bhagavan, that supreme person, instead of just the impersonal aspect. Does that make sense? So Balam, I am the strength that is devoid of material passions and desires. So I am that pure strength, and I am that lust that is not contrary to religious principles. And then he kind of begins to sum it up. He says, basically, all states of being, no, either passion, goodness, or ignorance, they all come from me. And then he describes those modes, the passion. This is Tribhya Gunamir Bhava, verses 13. He says the whole world is deluded. All these energies are the 3 modes of nature are very conditioning, very hard to overcome. Deviation, they're impossible to overcome. We have Chapuji, she'll probably remember this. In Sanskrit, often the first thing, the topic or the knowledge that is generally known is spoken in the first half of the verse, and the second half of the verse often gives like a revelation, something new to learn. And so the Daiviyeshu Gunamayi, this world is my divine energy, and it's very difficult to overcome. And so if you study the Vedas, that stuff might be kind of already known. But the second half of the verse gives like the revelation that Mama evaye prapadyante maitam tarantite, but one who surrenders unto me, easily that person crosses beyond it. And because this chapter is quite long, I think we will not continue with the extensive summary of the whole chapter, because we're going to go deep into every single verse. But maybe we can speak a little bit about memorization. Actually, maybe we can have Bailey, Chapu, some of you can express, can share some of things that helped you with doing your memorization. We have, I know Chapu, No Dance Chants, they have, they started in the beginning of the class and they were able to do all of chapter 15. Bailey was a little later in the class. How are you doing, Bailey, with your memorization? I don't know if you're free.
Hare Krishna. It's going well. I have all of chapter 15 memorized.
Could you speak a little louder?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu. It's going good. I have all of chapter 15 memorized.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
All right. So, any of you want to share any tips, any things that that helped you in your memorization?
Well, for me, it was like the breakout rooms that we had in the first sessions, and daily reading, and like trying to be in a daily meditation about the verse, like keeping the verse in your mind, and find like extra spaces to recite with another person, like text about the verse, like putting each other in a hot seat in the middle of the day, and that was really helpful for me.
So Chapu is a great resource for all of you. She's always very eager. You can contact her and wrap out chapter 7 with her. You guys just dig into chapter 7. So some of the points that for our memorization is, it was a little easier in the beginning of chapter 15 because there was a lot of visual things. But one thing we try to do is we try to act out the words. We really want to not have two separate things in our mind, that we have some rote recitation of an English translation. We do want to get to a very clear translation, and but we don't want to just have some Sanskrit babble and then some translation as a separate thing. But we want to actually become very, very competent in our understanding of the vocabulary. You don't, if you already know the translation and you know the vocabulary, you don't have to know Sanskrit grammar. You just know, okay, these are the words, and I remember what this verse is about. And so we try to, one of the things we do is we act out, like Rasaham Apsukanteya. We can just see Sammy drinking her water, and you just remember. So when we chant that verse, we can go, Rasoham Apsukanteya. I am the light, Prabhasmi Sashi Suryo. I'm the light of the sun and the moon. So we can figure out different things that we can do to act those out. So there's a lot of visual things in this chapter too, as we see. So we focus on, okay, writing it down, adding some, that's a good thing. Yeah, actually, yeah, writing down. Srila Prabhupada said to write is to remember. To write is to remember. Because Kali Yuga brain means he also said in Kali Yuga, we have to say something at least 7 times even to remember. We have really poor, terrible brains. And we're not used to challenge. A lot of times we're not used to challenging, or maybe we memorize things, but really like become to analyze things, to really dig into things. I remember I was sitting in a class of a teacher, sannyasi, and just like, you know, you all listen to class, many of you listen to class every day. And in the class, he said, in the middle class, he said, okay, Nityananda Chandra, what did I just say? And it's like, I thought it was good enough that I'm sitting here with my eyes open. I didn't know I had to like really pay attention and digest all this stuff. And so that hot seat that he was putting, you know, he would often put the students on the hot seat like this. And so I felt like one of those old cars with the crank engine. I felt my brain kind of like being like rusted brain being pushed into motion. And so if you find some of this memorization painful, then you're doing the right thing. I watched a video of a language professor who described, he learned Chinese to fluency in 6 months, and he learned, he's one of those polyglots who learns many different languages, and he gives all kinds of different learning tools and explains different things for learning languages. And he said one thing is, if your face starts hurting because you're using your facial muscles in a different way to make different sounds, that's a good thing. So if your brain starts hurting in this course, you're doing something right. So we focus on the really getting into the words, even more than the word forward. We sometimes dig deeper and try to find out what are the roots of those words. Like I remember when I was learning chapter 15, I saw this word pravidha, and the translation was nourished, and I was like, I know vridha means, I think it means old, and pra means to increase. And so with a little investigation, I saw that pravidha, it means nourished, just like something that increases your growth, increases your age, is nourishing you. To increase, if you add some, what do you call, miracle grow to the plant, that's it. You could say it's nourishing. Maybe it's not nourishing, I don't know, but at least some water or something. So it's pravidha, it is increasing its age, its growth. And so we get into like even the roots of the words, and it gets easier over time because you run into the same words over and over again. Like Chapuji, do you know what Gandhi means? Gandhi, Ganda. I'll say the verse. It's Shariram Yadav Apnoti.
Ajur Gandham Mivashayat.
Yes.
I know it's the verse that the
So
aromas
Vair,
and the air.
Gandan.
Air. Mm-hmm.
Vair is the air.
Mm-hmm.
And Gandhi is the
Aroma.
aroma. Yes, the fragrance. Yes. And so you find you find these words over and over again. You think, okay, fragrance, aroma, that's not a common word. How often do you use the word fragrance? And then again, in this verse, it says, I'm the original fragrance of the earth. And then there was another verse the maduram maduram vapur asya vavo, maduram 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 maduram, madugandhi madusmitam etadaho, maduram 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 maduram. Madhugandhi, Krishna's honey-scented, gentle smile, is sweet beyond compare. So sweet is my sweet Lord forms. Maduram, maduram, vapurasya vibho. Maduram Maduram Vadanam Maduram, but sweeter still is his face, so fair. Madhu Gandhi Mridusmitame Tadaho Madaram 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 Madaram. But his honey scented gentle smile is sweet beyond compare. So that Madhu Gandhi, fragrance, Madhu is honey, honey scented, Mridu, gentle, Smitam, smile, is sweet beyond compare. So by learning the word for word, we actually just make it easier and easier as we go. We will run into the words like jnana, vijnana, so many words that we'll keep on running into, and then it becomes more and more clear. So word for word, acting out. We do breakout rooms also for those who are available. We do we break out in like rooms of 4 or 5 or so, and everybody has a little bit more chance to practice each verse itself. And then we kind of meet back together, see if there's anything that people have to share, any ideas that came up, any questions. We want to also, we want to tackle any questions, any doubts, any clarifications. Like it's good to have like a pond knowledge, have knowledge that's wide, but it's also good to have a well that goes in deep. So that's what this Bhagavad Gītā memorization course, we're gonna, another thing I would say is get a hold of anything you can find. Like if you hear find some lectures on this chapter. Right now I am trying to, Prabhupada gave class on chapter 7, verse 1. There are more recorded classes on that verse than any other class, any other verse of the Bhagavad Gītā. Probably any verse of any book. He spoke on chapter 7, verse 1. As far as that which is recorded, there's like 30 lectures. So I'm going to try to listen to all those lectures and just take like some key points to bring back to everyone. So find lectures that you can, we'll send the commentaries, all different, seeing the Bhagavad Gītā, seeing the verse from many different angles. Here, I'll show you some of the books that I got here. And we're not going to make you read all these books, but just I'll show you. So this is one of the books right here that we will be using. In addition, we'll look at Prabhupada's purport. We'll have this one. This is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. This is about 450 years back. And we have Baladev Vidyabhushan. Srila Prabhupada dedicates the Bhagavad Gītā to Baladev Vidyabhushana. In the beginning of the book, he writes, I dedicate this to Baladev Vidyabhushana. And another book is Study Guide by Burijan Prabhu. Bhagavad Gītā Study Guide. I got some other ones. I got this one. This is a devotee wrote Bhagavad Gītā. He wanted to make it in such a way that his children could understand. And so I was like, there's a nice one right there. And we got a few others here. We've got some scholastic versions here. And so in the beginning of this book, there's a point that's made. Somebody asked Prabhupada, what book would you like to translate next? And Prabhupada said, oh, maybe this book by the Goswamis, or maybe this or that. And then he said, or Bhagavad Gītā. And the devotees were scratching their head. They're like, whoa, wait, didn't you already translate Bhagavad Gītā? And he said, Prabhupada said, well, there are many commentaries. There's Baladev Vidyabhushan, there's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, meaning that these verses are like jewels. There's so much. If you hold it up to a light and turn it a little bit, there'll be different color that you can see within it. There's different aspects that can be dived into. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave class for at least 3 hours a day for a month straight on the first verse of the Bhagavatam. This is to give you a sample of how much content there is. So anybody have anything they can share, something? Somebody can give us.
I actually had a question.
Oh, yes, please.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
So
And
I'm just looking.
where are you calling in from?
Oh, I'm in Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. All right.
So I'm just looking at verse 4, and when I'm looking at the, like, it says Bumir Apo.
Yep.
And then when I look at what it is, Appa is water.
Oh yes. So yeah. There we go.
Some of the words are, and then it'll say Anala is fire.
And
But
then
it's saying Bumir Apo Nalo. Like the words are kind of
different. Yes.
different. I'm just curious why.
Yes. Good question. Very nice. So Sanskrit is the way Sanskrit will always be written. It's written phonetically and the way how it comes out in speech. So the word nala, bhumir apo nala vayu, how it will sound as you speak it. So if you look at it in the dictionary, it will be written like how it's written in the word for word. And so there are oftentimes in Sanskrit, sometimes even the letters change just because how this sound sounds right after that sound, it makes it fluctuate a little bit. So yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, it affects how they're when they're put together. Sometimes when we're struggling to figure out how do I say this verse, because it's really then it's good just to read the words word for word. And sometimes that is harder than you go back to the verse, because it can be sometimes a little bit hard to chant some of these verses. I think we're lucky with this chapter. Every single verse in this chapter is of the same meter. None of them are like chapter 15. We had verses 2 through 5 are longer verses. They're longer meter. And so we started off with a bigger challenge. And then verse 15 also is a longer meter. But this whole chapter, yeah, as far as I remember, I think they're all the same meter. But yeah, they'll be phonetically written, and basically how they combine together, how the sounds combine together.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Welcome. And another tricky one is, because you'll hear another one is, it is called I think it's called the Anusvarga. Does anybody remember? Is that the right term? The H with the dot? Who knows? Rashmi? H with the dot. So H with the dot, if you're not reading a verse, if you're speaking Sanskrit, or if you're just reading just a word, a dictionary, then H with the dot is always said. But in verses, like in the Bhagavad Gītā, you'll find, does everybody have a verse to look at? If you look at, like I have a verse here. I don't know if it has an H with a dot. Let's see. Any verses with the H with the dot?
First verse has it.
Okay. I had a verse here. So Chi Bir Gunamir Bhavir AB. So that the way the H with the dot works is it extends the vowel after it, but it's only activated when it's on the depending on how you're looking at the verse. If you're looking at the verse written in 4 lines, there would be, if it's the last letter on the 2nd and 4th sentence. Otherwise, that H with the dot is basically ignored. And if you're looking at it, these verses are written, they're broken up oftentimes in 4 lines just because that's how the meter is. But they're actually written in 2 lines. So literally what I'm saying is, if the H with the dot ends on the N of the first line, or N of the 2nd line. Otherwise, it's ignored. So let me find a verse where it's not ignored. Okay, verse 15. If you can look at, if you have a Bhagavad Gītā handy with the Roman transliterated Sanskrit, verse 15. Anybody have those handy? Or you can go to Vedabase.com. 7:15. Namam duskritino mudha. So you see how that mudha, I didn't say mudha. But the next one I will do. Prapadyante naradamaha. Everybody see that? So the Maya Parita Jnana Asuram Bhavam Ashritaha. So that's a question everyone's like, okay, what's going on there? So that's so only the Naradamaha and the Ashritaha, that's the only place where I'm using that weird letter. That's one that was always puzzling people. Does that make sense? Everybody follow that one? Ramana, you want to play on it? You want to say hi? Come, or my son's going to come and say hi to all of you.
Hi.
Can you see him?
Hello, Haribo.
He wants to play some Roblox. He said, quiet. All right, here you go. Here you go. Any more questions?
I had a quick question. So
Yes.
on verses, the meter itself, there's multiple ways of singing them, right?
Oh, yes, yeah. That's the nice thing what this what is called Anushtup meter, which is 32 syllables, 8 syllables in each line, is there's so many meters. You can do the we don't need no education, Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre. You can do that one. You can do my namam diskritano mudha prapadyante naradama maya pritakyana suramba mashita. And you can even go higher. Namam diskritana mudha prapadyante naradama maya pritakyana suramba mashita. Okay. Lots of different meters that can be sung. So if you have different ones, when I usually chant, I like to fluctuate between like the low and the high one, just kind of so it's not a flat sounding, it's like gives some life to them. And there's a lot. I'm
not sure if I'm how do I put it? Like, if I'm just kind of speculating my own, if there's a recommended meter and I'm kind of, just making up something just for myself, if that's
fine. Yeah, you can sing, you can you can try different ones. Yeah. And there's some emotion. See you later, Bailey. He's heading out. We'll be out in just a second too. There's some emotion that you get in the Sanskrit. There's that you may not be able to perceive it so well with just a translation. Like if you chant chapter 1 or chapter 15, the Sanskrit, like when Arjuna is seeing this universal form and he's just like totally flipping out. It's just freaking him out, seeing like time crunching everybody between its teeth, and the verse, this meter, it's got like this intense meter, and you could just kind of feel this freaked outness of Arjuna, or this or in chapter 1 when you chant the verses that he's talking about, you can kind of just feel his anxiety of like, there's his friends on the other side. Oftentimes verses, the meters change when like the story shifts. I remember Kashtuba, he was talking about like if this was a dramatical performance, and like sometimes the music changes and it gets more intense and stuff like that. And so the knowing these verses, it sometimes helps to bring that emotion to it as well. And so sometimes if there's a change in the theme of what they're talking about, then the meter will actually change. They'll have these longer verses. So yeah, in the chapter 11, it's all these really long verses, and you can just kind of feel this anxiety of Arjuna seeing the scary form, the Ugra Rupam, the totally scary form of the Lord as time crunching everything down. All right, so everybody's feeling excited. So I'll send you an email, and this first email is going to be there's a long purport, several pages long, but you have a whole week to read it on the first verse. And so with each class, we'll send out Prabhupada's purport. We'll send the whole from Bhagavad Gītā as it is. And then we'll send out some of these, and then we'll send out some of this intermittently, usually maybe about 15-20 minutes of reading. And you'll have a whole week to do it. And then we'll meet together. We'll practice a verse together. We'll do it in breakout rooms. We'll dig into the meaning, and then we'll dig into the practice. There's a Bhagavad Gītā chanting on Instagram, can be useful. There you go. And I'll give like a sample of just that one verse in each email too, an audio sample. So any other comments or questions? Anything else? Everybody ready? It may be a challenge, but it'll be worth it. You'll have a book in your brain pocket for the rest of your life. So. And literally, if you do this, once you get it down pretty well, one of the good things to do is to call a friend and say, "Hey, I'm doing this weird Bhagavad Gītā Sanskrit thingy. Can I wrap off some verses to you?" Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, one of our great acharyas from 450 years back, he said, of the three, the person who makes the most advancement, you got the person who's sitting in the class, you got the person who's asking the questions, and you got the person who's speaking. So the person who speaks, he said, that person makes the most advancement. That one gets the most absorbed. So if you have to tell somebody, you say, "Hey, can I wrap off a verse to you?" And then of course they'll probably ask what it means, or you can probably just explain what it means. So, or you call Chapuji, say, "Chapuji, can I tell you my verse?" She'll be ready. And you got Chapu, you got Bailey, you got different people that have some experience. And then you have any of the students here, even if they don't have experience, you all can just share verses together. And they'll become more and more. And we slow down the pace. We're doing it 2 verses a week. So we're doing it 1 verse a week. So just we don't make it too hard. All right. So Eben Lewis, he says, anytime. See? A lot of resources here. So I'll stop here. Om Tat Sat. Thanks a lot. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
See you guys
Hari Om
next
Tat
Sunday.
Sat.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.